It's already starting, everybody. We are already here. Now, before we get into this article, before we get into the juice of this, I do want to say a few things just in general about how a huge portion of Trump voters seem to have forgotten how his last administration went, but also more importantly, when you look at the breakdown for how many Latinos voted for Donald Trump and how many immigrants voted for Donald Trump, and then you look at this, I'm sorry, but how did you not really see this coming? One of the things that Trump supporters often do is they say, oh, he doesn't mean it. He's not serious. He's not going to do those things. But if that's the case, then why is he saying them? Why do we have to go through this maze of what he will or won't do based on what he says? And most importantly, the fact that racism was pretty much all he's ever done, all he's ever talked about ever since he came down that escalator in 2015. Talking about what the Mexicans, how they sending their people over, and Mexico's going to build a wall and they going to pay for it and all of that stuff like that. The Muslim ban, separating families, separating children from their mothers. And now, this mass deportation plan to deport up to 15 million people simply because they don't have their papers the right way, aka white supremacy. For you to think that he's just kidding, my question to you is then why did you vote for him in the first place? You know what I'm saying? Like, why did you vote for him in the first place? So we're going to get into this now. Undocumented migrants married to U.S. citizens now face deportation thanks to Trump appointed judge's ruling. So let's read. Undocumented migrants married to U.S. citizens could go from the prospect of an eased path to citizenship to increased chances of getting deported after a federal judge from Texas struck down a recent policy from the Biden administration. The program in question allowed migrants who met specific eligibility criteria and stepchildren of U.S. citizens to apply for a green card while in the country. Change from the previous policy, a change from the previous policy that required them to leave the country, potentially unable to return for several years as the bureaucracy progressed. The measure, which reached some 500,000 people, was put on hold in August by U.S. District Judge J. Campbell Barker just days after it was enacted, after a series of Republican led states accused the government of bypassing Congress. Now, Barker, who was appointed by Donald Trump during his first term, has ruled that the Biden administration overstepped its authority, stretching the legal interpretation of immigration law past its breaking point. Again, definitely, the Federalist Society has really, really succeeded in their goal and their mission to elect all these right wing judges. Now, it is true that when Biden was in there, well, he's still in there, but during Biden's term, he also has elected or appointed rather a lot of federal judges. Republicans have been way more successful at this. And we saw a great example of that with Donald Trump appointing three Supreme Court judges. And now that he's won, he's certainly almost certainly going to appoint more. Clarence Thomas is probably going to step down. He's going to get another one in there. All right, where are we now? The Department of Homeland Security has questioned the authority of the court, saying in September that the freeze should have been vacated. The GOP led states argued that the program violated the Administrative Procedure Act and exceeded DHS's authority. The Department of Homeland Security, however, maintained that even if the states have standing to sue and have met the requirements for injunctive relief, any pause in the program should be limited to the plaintiff states only and not countrywide. The agency argued that there is no reason to believe that these individuals, many of whom have lived in the U.S. for over a decade, would suddenly choose to leave the country now. Obviously, I mean, if you've been here, especially too, again, this is just a continuation of ripping families apart. There's no real infrastructure to deport 15 million people, but they definitely gonna try. And it starts with stuff like this. And think about how callous it is. You've had maybe an undocumented, your spouse, your husband, your wife is undocumented, but they've been here for years. Y'all have a family. You have a real life. You know what I'm saying? You have everything like that going for yourself. And then your wife or your husband gets ripped away, even though they've been here for years. This is the territory that we're moving into. This is what Americans voted for. And unfortunately, this is what a lot of immigrants voted for. Y'all voted to deport yourselves, to deport your cousins, to deport your mothers, your fathers. Now, it is true that Democrats deport people as well, but the aggression is not the same in terms of the overall plan, the overall agenda. Despite the legal fight, the district judge ended up striking down the measure, and it is highly unlikely the future Trump administration will seek to appeal the decision when it takes office in January. Of course, they won't. Moreover, the migrants now face now face increased danger of deportation as Trump has anticipated his willingness to target all undocumented citizens in the country. In an interview with NBC News after being elected, Trump said strengthening the U.S. border would be one of his top priorities after taking over the office in January. Not a question of the price tag, is what he said about it. And again, for people who live in Iowa, for people who live in Wisconsin, the border's like 1,000 miles away from you. But again, white supremacy, racism is the United States. It always has been, and it still is. Because at the end of the day, this country's 60% white, and they're the ones who reelected Trump. It's just the truth. Trump, who emphasized mass deportation throughout his campaigns, explained that his administration would have no alternative but to proceed with these actions. He pointed out that his victory against Vice President Kamala Harris was a call to bring common sense to the country. Common sense, aka white supremacy. While he stressed making the border stronger, he noted that the U.S. should remain open to welcoming people. We obviously have to make we obviously have to make the border strong and powerful, eh? And we have to, at the same time, we want people to come into our country, he said. And I'm not somebody that says, no, you can't come in. We want people to come in, but 15 million people going to get deported. Now, I doubt that many people are actually going to get deported, but still, the effort is absolutely going to be there because that's what these people want. Voting blocks, when you look at who really elects people in this country, it's white people. That's who elects, 34% of the voting block was white men. 37% of the voting block in this election was white women. That's who put Donald Trump in there. 53% of white women voted for Donald Trump. 60% of white men voted for Donald Trump. That's how he got back in. You look at the other demographics, like the black males, black females, Latino males, Latino females. You're looking at like 5%, 6%, 7%. So yeah, it is true that when you can coalesce these blocks, it can make a difference. But at the end of the day, it's pretty insignificant because whoever white people line up behind, that's who becomes the president. That's how this works. Which really, again, should be no surprise to anyone considering how this country was formed. So now we'll look at how many people this is going to impact. As CNN previously reported, it was estimated that the program could directly affect 750,000 to 800,000 people. That could have made it. Made it the federal government's most sweeping relief program since the 2012 implementation of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, aka DACA, which shields undocumented immigrants brought to the United States as minors from deportation. So again, it's clear what the agenda is. Project 2025, and y'all have seen. I know you saw. You got the Matt Walshes, the Steve Bannon saying, yeah, now that we've won, Project 2025 is the goal." So let's watch this. We got one more thing that we're gonna check out from Republican Rep Jim Banks backing Trump's plan to deport 15 million people. And he says that he hopes that we can deport every single one of them. Obviously, it's not even just the moral implications of this of ripping people's families apart, but this is going to destroy the economy, even more so than the terrorists, because undocumented immigrants work jobs that Americans don't want to work. Whether it be, especially in agriculture, service jobs that Americans, we feel like we're too good for. So, congratulations, everybody. But let's check this out real quick.
Do you see all undocumented immigrants as should they all be kicked out of the country?
Well, some conservative estimates say that there are at least 15 million illegals who have come into the country on Joe Biden's watch. It's my hope that we deport.
Not true. Not true. Again, there may be 15 million undocumented immigrants, but they didn't all come here over the last 4 years. So that's just ridiculous. And it's really a waste of time to put it like that. You could just say there's 15, 20 million undocumented immigrants and just leave it at that. But the idea that all those people flooded in here over the last 4 years is just incorrect.
Every single one of them that we can. And it starts with deporting. It's my hope that we deport every single one of them that we can.
It's my hope that we deport every single one of them that we can. Again, what does this stem from? This stems from white America doing everything it can to maintain its majority. Its majority. Because if this was really about economics, then they wouldn't be talking about deporting all these people, again, who work jobs that Americans don't want to work.
And it starts with deporting violent criminals who are in the United States, who came here illegally, who have committed violent crimes. And I think once you do that, President Trump is committed to making that his first and top priority when it comes to mass deportation. And then also on top of that, increase the penalties on businesses who hire illegals in our country and take away the incentive for them to be here and for them to come here. And I think many of them will leave on their own. But this the mass deportation plan needs to be an immediate focus of the House and the Senate. I believe when
again, at the end of the day, this is just white people being white people. Hey now, thank you so much for tuning in here at Politics and Paper. If you like what I do and you support my work, go ahead and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it and really helps to support what we do here.